Today I worked at Wegmans from 8 in the morning to 4:30 p.m. I took my first 15-minute break at noon or after 4 hours of work. I took my lunch at 2:30 p.m. Around that time, for my first 15-minute break, it was maybe a minute or two after noon. Exactly when I took it. During my 30-minute lunch, I had two cold cut sandwiches, with mayo that my dad made for me in the morning. Before we left around 6:50 in the morning. So my dad could drive me to the Wegmans I work at. With the cold cuts sandwiches, I had four Manilo Pepper Ridge Farm cookies, and a 16-ounce plastic bottle of Upstate Farms branded whole milk. My mom brought over to my dad's place the other day. I recall that being yesterday. I recall naturally waking up a few minutes before the 6 in the morning alarm I set. On my laptop using a third-party website. though I let it go off just to test that it would work. And it did, even though it seemed like my laptop reset while I was asleep. The tabs were restored and I saw everything that I usually see when I boot my laptop back on after powering it off. I recall falling asleep today around 4:30 in the morning. And after I got up for today, around 6:15 in the morning, I had with my first cup of plain coffee today and the one I had at my dad's place before my shift at Wegmans, a classic or default square donut that was one of two my dad got from the Salty Bread Pizza Cafe the other day. I had the equivalent of 2 Keurig pods. They're the same pods of coffee, only Wegmans generic brand. I primarily had that plain coffee in the break room as I got to the Wegmans I work at. About 45 minutes before the start of my shift. But the second cup of coffee I had at Wegmans extended into the first half hour of my shift. And then I used that same cup to have some tap water. The same cup I used for both cups of coffee from those two pods. They're more convenient, though, in the long run, are more expensive and more wasteful unless they're 100% recyclable. I took my second and last 15-minute break at 4 p.m. After my 30-minute lunch ended around 3 p.m. How my lunch and breaks were scheduled today is how I usually schedule them. When I have a full 8.5-hour shift, eight paid hours since the lunch doesn't count. That's what I always plan to do and what I usually do. And today was no different whenever I have a full shift at Wegmans. Today, in between restocking the banana section a few times and reloading the banana runner with 3 stacks of 4 banana boxes, full banana boxes, twice, the second time pretty much near the very end of my shift. Right before I took my second 15-minute break. I restocked a combination of the hard item section, which is where our various onions and potatoes are. The bulk wall on the right side of the produce department from the perspective of standing with your back to the door to the employees only warehouse. And the tropical section a little. I primarily restocked the bulk wall of the produce department because roughly during the halfway point of my shift, a few passing customers got my attention asking if we had any of a specific product they were looking for from the bulk wall, either because no product of that was available on the floor, or what was available didn't look very fresh. I restocked a wax paper box of 24 stalks of celery, a box of green onions, and a box of cilantro. Towards the end of my shift, I helped one of my coworkers to restock some watermelons at a couple small sections acting as displays for the main entrance from the area that's between the main part of the supermarket and the parking lot of the supermarket. These displays were at one of the entrances that connected that area to the main part of the supermarket. At the very start of my shift, pretty much, I asked my employee advocate about participating in the upcoming pickleball tournament that Wegmans will be hosting in collaboration with United Way as a fundraiser for United Way. I recall being told that I had missed the registration period, but there is still a chance that not all of these spots have been filled up, so there is still a chance of me participating in the pickleball tournament, which, even if that turns out to not be the case, there'll still be food trucks at this event. I expressed interest because these special events, big or small, always excite me. at Wegmans. When I started my shift by restocking the banana section was considerably barren. I think there were just some bananas here and there. I think it was about 2/3 barren, if I recall. But I was able to fully restock the banana section. It took me roughly 45 minutes, not counting the roughly 5-ish minutes that were spent being led to my employee advocate to ask about the upcoming pickleball tournament. I recall at two different points during my shift giving two different customers empty banana boxes from either the banana runner on the floor or from the back. And both times they requested at least a dozen empty banana boxes. And they transported these empty banana boxes using one of our shopping carts. We give away empty banana boxes to help either with moving or with donations. Right after I ended my shift, I walked outside of the Wegmans and my mom picked me up and took me back to my dad's place. And there, roughly from 5:30 p.m. to about 6:30 p.m., I had some coffee that was left in our refrigerator in a plastic glass. I sipped at it. I only recall feeling sluggish and borderline nodding off roughly from 1:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. during my shift at Wegmans, but otherwise I felt perfectly fine. Thankfully. I recall finishing the editing for the May 9 My Dinner video in Camtasia 2019, and then uploading that rendered video project file to my YouTube channel during the early night hours. I recall working on editing the May 9 My Dinner video during the first few hours of today before I fell asleep today. Though I also recall falling asleep during the early night hours, roughly from 9:30 p.m. to 10:45 p.m. Prior to about 20 minutes before I fell asleep during the early night hours, after getting back to my dad's place, I don't recall feeling tired at all.